As Generation Z begins to take on more leadership roles, mastering the art of messaging to this tech-savvy, short attention span generation has become crucial. The differences in messaging between generations may not be obvious at first glance, especially if you consider the basic structure of emails. However, the style and tone of messaging have undergone a significant evolution, with authenticity now being a core pillar of successful sales communication. From baby boomers to millennials, the biggest shift in sales messaging has been the emphasis on authenticity. What was once a nice to have is now essential. In fact, 90% of millennials say brand authenticity is important to them, with 57% stating they would switch to a different brand if they felt it offered more authenticity. That comes from Stackla, the Consumer Content Report, Influence in the Digital Age. This evolution is something I welcome wholeheartedly. As we continue to progress, the goal is to make messaging more human, reducing conflict and fostering genuine connections. It's not just about addressing someone's position or title anymore. It's about understanding their true mindset, the environment they operate in, and the times we live in. Now, why does Generation Z require a different, but not too different, sales messaging approach? I'll admit, I hadn't given much thought to how we should message to Gen Z until a couple of emails from an SDR landed in my inbox. The first email didn't elicit a response from me, but the second one, combined with the first, caught my attention. Initially, I thought the messaging was basic, maybe even unprofessional, but then I realized something else was happening here. The emails evoked a sort of similar to scrolling through Instagram feeling or scrolling through TikTok feeling. They were short, witty, and extremely concise, with plenty of white space, more white space than text, actually. Now, this makes perfect sense when you consider that 65% of Generation Z preferred short-term visual content to communicate information. This is from Vision Critical. This generation is growing up in an era dominated by platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, where the average attention span, according to Microsoft, is just 8 seconds. Traditional long-form messaging simply doesn't resonate with Generation Z the way it did with previous generations. Now, these emails from the SDR were structured, the two of them, like a series of mini bites, each sentence no more than 15 words followed by ample white space. It almost felt like watching a high-production TikTok. The email also included a simple image, a chart that clearly highlighted a key differentiator that this tech company had over its larger and more established competitors. Being the curious one that I am, I reached out to the SDR, not to take a meeting, but to understand what was behind this messaging. The SDR, Angus, was who I reached out to. Now, with his fitting head of flowing red hair and mustache, Angus explained that the messaging was indeed intentional. It was designed for a younger audience, quickly rising to decision-making power within their organizations. The general results that Angus shared were impressive. It sounds like colleagues were clamoring to use the sequence. What Angus achieved was more than just a successful email sequence. He tapped into something deeper. Or maybe not, but I'm going to take it deeper. The design of his messaging sparked a sense of familiarity within me, mirroring the experience of scrolling on social media. We know that social media scrolling is addictive, drawing us in with content that's often not healthy for our minds, images of perfect lives, fashion models, bodybuilders, and activities we wish we were doing. But the takeaway here is that this tiny spark of familiarity, I'm used to consuming content that looks like this, is becoming increasingly powerful. In an age of automated messaging and less human interaction within a sales cycle, capturing attention is more challenging than ever. But messaging like Angus's should be reserved for prospects who are likely Gen Z or younger millennials, as it is tailored specifically to their consumption habits. Now, I'm 30, which places me in the later years of the millennial generation. Now, these years are socially constructed, but most definitions would have me in the later years of a millennial generation. I've held off on downloading TikTok out of loyalty to Vine, the memory of Vine, until I finally gave in for professional reasons, which was to help promote this channel on YouTube. So if you'd like to follow me on TikTok, you certainly may. Short form content, 8 seconds or less usually. So while this approach works wonders for the late millennials, for the Generation Z, the younger audiences, it is crucial to remember that not every prospect will respond the same way. And individual generations, let it be known, are more emotionally attached to the idea of generational differences than ever. Have you ever read an article on the similarities between generations? How to bridge the gap between generations? Probably not. It's a little more divisive. So therefore, meeting your prospect based on their age, where they are, is very important. Now, well done to Angus. His well thought out, unique approach is sure to pay dividends as Generation Z continues to ascend into leadership roles globally and very quickly. Tailoring messaging toward short attention spans, when done right, can be professional, valuable, and incredibly effective. Now, this shift toward less is more messaging, it's fascinating, especially considering that Generation Z is already headlining the 30 Under 30 awards. The challenge now is to continue evolving our strategy to meet this new standard. It's important to remember a few notes. One is tailoring messaging to the type of content, or making it appear or allowing it to be consumed the same way or a similar way to the type of content that generation is used to consuming is wise. Fully adjusting your messaging plan, starting over, and allowing messaging to take an entirely new form is not a great idea. Finally, experiment. Make use of the examples that Angus has been using successfully, and research your prospects beforehand. Sending this type of content to somebody who's in their 60s probably isn't a great idea. Somebody in their 20s, absolutely. Last but not least, please subscribe if you haven't. It will allow me to keep providing hopefully insightful information in this complex tech sales world. Like and comment with your thoughts on Angus's style and how we should be messaging Generation Z. And last but not least, make sure, folks, that you get up and you get